Welcome back. gforce Robotics co-founders Sloan Mann and Kaitlyn Nolte are back with us to talk about the designing and the building of the robots, Spitfire specifically, so we'll get into that, but thanks for hanging with us. I don't even know how to begin this because I guess, let me ask you, how do you begin this? How do you begin thinking about building a robot and what inspires you and where do you start? I know that's a silly, stupid question for people like you, but for me, I haven't a clue.
So our competition seasons are actually from January to about April. So we actually only have about 6 to 8 weeks in the beginning of January to completely design, build, wire, and program our robots. So the very first step we do in building a robot is come together as a team. We watch the kickoff video, which basically tells us this year's challenge. And then after we watch the kickoff video, we all sit in a circle and we all say our ideas and what kind of goals we want to go after, because some teams do everything and some teams don't do everything. It just matters how efficient you want your robot to be. And so whenever the first step in our design process is actually using CAD or computer-aided design. So it's kind of just like 3D modeling for our robot, especially for Spitfire, which is the robot we brought today. It's extremely important to use CAD because it's a very, very small robot compared to some of the others. And we did that for agility and speed. But whenever you have such a small robot, fitting in all of the electronics and mechanical parts, you want to be able to 3D model it first. So that's kind of the first step.
Yeah, and it always starts with a game. So we get a set amount of challenges that we can choose to complete or maybe not focus on as much that we have in the game. And then it's always real world examples too that we can pull from. Last year, 2023, we had to pick up cones and then inflatable cubes. And for the cone aspects, we looked at real world mechanisms like robots that actually do pick up cones. And FIRST has an over 20-year history as well with lots of different games. So we always go back in the past and see what teams might have done for their games as well.
And the thing that the folks, you got to understand, you don't go to Home Depot and pull these parts, right? I mean, you're building these parts from scratch in a lot of cases. How does that work? I mean, who does that? You? You? Both of you do that?
So FIRST Robotics competition has a lot of specific suppliers that cater specifically to this competition. But if we can't find a certain piece that we need from these suppliers, then we often have to 3D model the piece that we want and then send it off to get machined.
Yes, and we also own our own 3D printers, so we 3D print a lot of parts first. It's also very helpful in prototyping because you don't have to spend the money to get the real part. You can 3D print it first with filament and your own 3D printer. That's a little cheaper, so it's a nice way to design.
Now, I know you have Hellcat. I know you have Spitfire too. But Spitfire is the one we're going to play with in a little bit here. Tell me about this. What was the objective of building Spitfire? What did it have to do? And what process did you go through to make that happen?
So we had 3 main goals when we were building Spitfire. We wanted to use a new drivetrain called Swerve. We wanted to have presets on that robot, meaning if the operator were to press a certain button on the controller, one of Spitfire's mechanisms would go to a preset position. And then we wanted to fully 3D model using computer-aided design our robot before we even touched it in real life. Spitfire was an off-season robot, so we didn't actually compete with it in a real competition, but we wanted to build it so we were ready for next year's competition and so that we had those skills. And Spitfire met all of the goals that we wanted, so we were really happy about that.
Well, how many girls are in this? 10?
Yes.
Is that what I understand? And do you all do something different? I mean, is there a specific job you do that you don't do? You know what or is it a big team effort?
So something that we really wanted when we started this team was that we wanted every girl on the team to have hands on the robot if they wanted to be a part of the mechanical team. So actually all of the girls on our team do mechanical, electrical, and then we have a separate programming team because that's a little bit more specific. And then we also all do community outreach as well.
Okay, you got a favorite part of the process?
Yes.
She's shaking, yeah. What's your part?
So my favorite part is definitely programming, specifically the autonomous part of the competition. It's a really challenging process, but it's also very rewarding. So autonomous is the first 15 seconds of a match. Matches are 2.5 minutes long. And the first 15 seconds, drivers cannot touch the controllers. The robot has to move by itself with pre-programmed code. And points are almost doubled during that time. So it can really, really set you apart from other teams. So my favorite part is definitely programming the autonomous and seeing it compete in competitions, and then also seeing what all of the other robots, everyone else's creative minds came up with.
How about you, Sloan?
Me personally, for the robot building process, I really like the design stage because that's when everyone has the most ideas. That's when we're all getting our first ideas down, and then we can combine ideas, see what works, see what doesn't. I always love our first competition because we have 6 to 8 weeks just in her garage, just building and working and working and working. And so when we get to the first competition, that's the very first time that we see our robot compete against other robots on the actual field playing the real game. And like Kaitlyn said, it's always fun to see what other teams come up with as well, because the one cool thing about first robotics competition is that even though it's the same game, every team comes up with a different robot and a different design.
It sounds like a lot of fun to watch. In fact, you're going to be checking out Spitfire here shortly, and we'll be back with Sloan and Kaitlyn.
So we're going to have to power cycle real quick. Here. Okay, enabling. Okay, we're good.
Wow.
This robot, we actually have it balanced on a balance beam, which was quite the challenge. Because you have to do it autonomously. So we actually have an inertial measurement unit inside. That's a big fancy word for something that tells if it goes backwards and forwards.
Sure.
And yeah, that was the main thing, that we also were able to score code autonomously. There you go. Yeah.
And this is on the medium speed right now for its drivetrain as well. So robots can get a lot faster than this.
Wow. You have a specific amount of time in order to accomplish the test, I'm assuming, right?
Yes. So we're in the match. We're limited to 2 minutes and 30 seconds to score as many points as we can.
Wow, that really flies.
Yes.
That is so much fun.
Thank you.
I'm going to give it back before I break it. That is cool.